free, Jew or Gentile. We are now identified with Jesus Christ. And that's what it's talking about here. Notice we were identified with his death. Now, as you go on through the text here, you'll notice a couple of things that are very important. Verse 4, therefore, we are buried with him by baptism unto death, that like as Christ was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. Okay, now, we have this wonderful truth. Because of this marvelous and wonderful identification, I'm identified with the death of Christ. Therefore, sin and its power does not have dominion over me. I no longer have to be a slave to sin. See? That's past. Death fixed that for me. Now I'm raised up with Christ. And I'm made to walk in newness of life. And that's the wonderful thing about the Christian life, to walk with Christ in the newness of life. Skipping now to verse number 5. Let me read it for you. For if we have been planted together in the likeness of his death, we shall be also in the likeness of his resurrection. This is what we call a simple condition. I don't know if there are any English teachers here this morning, but, you know, I've had to study English most all of my life. And somebody said, did you take a lot of English? Well, it took me. I don't know that I took it. But this is a simple condition. And when you have a simple condition, you good English teachers teach that you have to have two things. Number one, you have to have a protasis. Any teacher here? Well, you wouldn't know if I'm telling you the truth or not, would you? But you do. And then when you have a protasis, you have to have an apodosis, right? Yeah, you do. So you're going to lay a principle. Then you're going to back that principle up. See, that's what we're talking about. So notice the principle that is laid here. And since it is a simple condition, it is not since, it is not if, because verse 2 told us it is an if. See? Verse 2 said, how shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? So that's a fact. Now, since verse 2 is true, we read in verse 5, for if we have been planted together in the likeness of his death. That's what we learned from verse 2. And here Paul expands a little bit and said, we have been planted. Now, I suppose some of you people live in the city. You just can't appreciate Sussex County. And right now in Sussex County, you can go out, and I have friends that have said to me, go out, preacher, and get all the corn you want. It's out there in the field. Now, I guess you have to go down to the Acme store and buy it, I guess. I don't know. But somebody planted that stuff way, way back sometime in the past. And they did not expect the day they put the seed in the ground to reap that luscious ear of corn. It took some time, didn't it? Yeah, I used to plant corn, and you can plant it for 60 days, early stuff, or you can plant it for 90 days. And it grows. And that's what he's saying. Since we have been planted, way back there when I was identified with Christ and I didn't understand all about it, there's been some progress. There's been some movement in my Christian life. I've been growing. I've been developing. Sometimes I've kind of gone backwards. I wish I could say it's always progress, always growth, always development. Not so. But there has been progress. And since we have been planted, as he says in verse number 5, together in the likeness of his death, here's the apodosis. We shall be also in the likeness of his resurrection. So now I'm introduced to this idea of new life. See? Wonderful new life. And that new life is predicated upon the fact that here you have one who was dead, crucified at Calvary's cross, shed his precious blood, laid in a tomb, and now 3 days and 3 nights later, he's living. See, he's living. And there he is this morning, not some dead figure, but he is seated at the very right hand of God. And he's going to be seated there till all of his enemies are made his footstool. And as he's seated there, I have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ, the perfect, righteous one. No sin, no flaw. He's there. I'm identified with him. Ephesians chapter 2, I'm seated in heavenly places in him. All that he has is available to me. And that's what he's saying here. Notice, we shall be also in the likeness of his resurrection. Now, verse 6. You know, some things in order to progress in the Christian life you have to know. I mean, I feel good. I like experience. But I'm afraid experience gets us on the wrong track. And sometimes people have all kinds of experiences and they never get any progress. So in order to get progress, you've got to go back to the book. You've got to go back to the doctrine. You've got to stay there. And I said a moment ago, that's probably where most of our fundamental churches are going wrong. I mean, I hear these guys introduced as the guy that's going to set the world on fire, and he gets up in the pulpit and he massacres the Bible. Not intentionally, he just doesn't know any better. I was with Brother Joe Arillo. Some of you know Joe. He and I have been around a long time. We were sitting there one day in a pastor's meeting, and they introduced this guy, some young crackerjack guy that was going to set the world on fire. And I thought, boy, this is going to be good. And he got up and talked about the boy that had the lunch, and he's going to feed 5,000. And somehow he had concocted the idea the boy had all these peanut butter sandwiches his mother had made and all this and that and the other. And Joe poked me and said, where in the world did this guy get all this stuff? Well, I don't know where he got it. Didn't get out of the Bible. So there's some things you have to know, and that's what the next verse says, knowing this. Got that? You are never going to progress until you know some things. And when Pastor Whitmer says we have Sunday morning Sunday school, we have Sunday morning service, we have Sunday night service, we have Wednesday night service, I don't know how many services aside from that you have. That's 4 times for you to know and learn. Got that? That's 4 times you can know something and learn something, see? And probably if you try that for about a month or more, that would give you about 16 to 20 times to know and learn, see? And it won't be so bad, and pretty soon you'll see your life being developed and built on the Word of God, and you'll see progress in your life. Amen. Development in your life. And so Paul says here, notice this, you have to know this. I'm going to give it to you. That our old man, that is that old nature. That old nature. The heart of man is deceitful above all things, and it is desperately wicked. Who can know it? Amen. You can't know it. You can't know how wicked that is. Now you can gloss over it. I work with men who are incarcerated because they have committed violent crimes. Many of them have tried everything. They've tried education. I had a guy come into the prison some years ago, most brilliant guy I'd ever seen in my life. I said, Jim, you have a brain. And Jim had a brain. One day I said to Jim, kind of jokingly, I said, Jim, you know, you would be okay if you never went to school. Because some teacher in about 1st or 2nd grade did something that harmed you for the rest of your life. He said, what's that? I said, she taught you how to write your name. And you're smart enough to know that you could write your name on somebody else's check and make money. Had you never known how to write, you'd been okay. He was an educated sinner. I met a lot of guys who are religious sinners. Boy, they know all the terminology. All of it, it's meaningless. Never got down inside. I mean, a lot of them are cultured sinners. I mean, they know how to wear a suit and a tie and fix themselves